Now let's get the latest ahead of the opening ceremony later this afternoon. We cross to our reporter Liesl Olivier. Liesl, thank you so much for your time. While the games have started, of course, everybody looking forward for the evening match. Just talk to us about firstly where you are and how the mood is like there. Electrifying, I'm sure.
Well, it's very cold in Cape Town, but we've certainly seen some very hot action on the netball courts at the Cape Town International Convention Centre this morning. We've seen two of the title favourites, Australia and New Zealand, were in action. And then obviously also coming up, South Africa against Wales, and the official opening ceremony at 4 o'clock. That match between the Proteas and Wales starting at 6 o'clock. To discuss this morning's matches, I welcome Kenny Gassi, a former player and netball analyst. Kenny, nice to see you again. Let's start with the first match of the day. New Zealand, 76 goals to 27. They beat Trinidad and Tobago. It was a very convincing victory for them, but they feel that they did make a few errors. And what do you think they learned from that match?
You know, I think Auntie Knowles, as she's known to the netball community, I think it was good for her to be able to get her full bench out there and see, you know, where the holes are if they still do exist. I'm sure, you know, they were the team that had the most training. However, training on your own in isolation and coming into a World Cup situation is very different. So being able to step out and be able to play her full bench, I think, was a tick, firstly. Secondly, I think it is important because she's very much about keeping to her structures and keeping to things that she's trained. And I think that will make the difference between either winning by one or losing by one. So consistency in those structures and being able to get her combinations working in a strong or high level.
Coach Nadine also at the post-match media conference, she said that she thinks that some players should try a little bit harder. She wasn't happy with the performances of all her players. And then she also said that discipline was an issue. Did you pick something like that up?
Yes, I think I picked up the discipline in terms of their zone structure when it's second phase defense. So what she usually does is she'd like to turn the ball before it gets into the circle, because if you look at any of the teams, I think the bookends is where the action is happening in terms of defensively and in terms of the shooting end. So being a team that's able to turn the ball before it even gets into that shooting circle is a win for, I think, any coach. And yeah, I think New Zealand and I think Coach Nolene would have liked to have turned more ball in that game. But discipline is important in that structure, because if one person is out, then it does tend to fall apart.
So New Zealand have won the world title 5 times. They obviously want a 6th, and they want to be successfully defending their title. Did they look like world champions to you this morning?
You know, I think obviously it's the beginning of the tournament, and we're still a long ways away, and most teams, all teams actually, tend to build throughout the tournament. But looking at where they are starting, I think they definitely have a great chance of being in that final. It just depends now who's going to join them.
So tomorrow they are playing Uganda. Now Uganda, that is Australia. So tomorrow they are playing Tonga. What do you think the New Zealanders can expect from Tonga?
Well, I think the two players to watch out for in that Tonga side, which I think made a big difference today in the Fiji game, is obviously Kat Tuiviti, who is a former New Zealand player, and Gerard on the other side, which, you know, she started off as a wing defence but was moved to goalkeeper, and she really did make the difference, which is a former Australian defender. Both these players obviously know how the New Zealand style of netball is played. I think they need to expect lots of flair and lots of creativity. But, you know, it is difficult to come up against a side like a New Zealand side where they have structure, they have consistency and great connections. So I think it's going to be a really interesting game. And, of course, one, I think, as well in the bookends.
Yeah, it's Uganda that they're actually playing, and I spoke to the Ugandans earlier. They beat Singapore 79 goals to 37. They also, you know, have a tough match tomorrow. The Ugandans, what do you make of them? I mean, Malawi is also there in the back of their minds, they say, and, you know, with the Malawians moving up in the world rankings, but the Ugandans, they are a very dangerous side.
Well, you know, Uganda, if you look at all the countries sort of leading up to the World Cup, are the ones that I think have just sort of been under the radar. Not much has been said about them, and I think that's a good position to be in because no one knows what to expect from them. However, if you look at the players that they have, someone like a Mary Charlhock, who is playing in the UK Vitality League and was probably one of the the highest scoring goal shooter, that's definitely one player to watch out for. They have been plagued, unfortunately, by injuries, and if you look at the team that went into the Commonwealth, only 3 of those actually returned into the World Cup. So fairly new team, not much is known about them, but if you look at the players that they do possess in their team list, very, very dangerous. New Zealand has often said, Nolene has often said that Africans are really hard to play against because they do not have sort of a set play or a set structure or set style of play, and that's very difficult to combat. So yeah, very interesting game.
We have to wrap it up there, unfortunately, Kenny, but there were also wins for Australia, the number 1 ranked team in the world. They beat Zimbabwe 86-30, and then Tonga beating Fiji 56 goals to 51. So we were getting ready for the opening ceremony. There's lots of excitement around, and back to you in studio, Unati.
Thank you so much, Liesl Olivier there, obviously giving us a taste of what's to come. Of course, the Proteas play Wales in their opener this evening. So, of course, everybody will be watching.